so happy to again be offering our career skills workshop series with our amazing presenter, Gail Lewis. Today, we're going to be talking about managing change in the workplace. And if you're not familiar with the Center for the Women of New York, we have two locations. One is in Queensboro Hall, in Kew Gardens, and the other one is in Fort Totten, Queens, in Bayside, Queens, in Fort Totten Park. The Center for the Women of New York helps women overcome financial violence, social wellness, and legal issues by raising awareness and advocating for full gender equality for women. We try to understand women's needs and connect them with resources, not only our services and programs, but partner organizations and public agencies. We aim to aid, uplift, and address their challenges for them to reach their full potential. Our current services and programs are the Advocate and Referral Program. So if you don't know that we offer a service or program, just reach out. And if we don't offer it, we will guide you in the right direction to one of our partners. We offer financial literacy workshop series, career workshop series like this one, women in crisis and caregiver support groups. Now in March and April, we will offer again our one-on-one tax preparation assistance. We have in-person gardening and sustainability workshops, conversational ESL classes. That's in person now, so we're very excited to have pivoted and virtual. So look them up in our website. So the new classes are posted there. We have a legal support team that responds to inquiries via email. So reach out. We have yoga classes in person as well at our Bayside location. Self-esteem workshops, and we have a women's issues think tank. So join us to talk about women's issues. If you would like to watch any of our past events, you can find them at cwny.org/past-events. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and they will be addressed at the end of the presentation. And then if you dialed in, you can also send us your questions via email. Our email is events@cwny.org, and Lana, our amazing volunteer, will be monitoring that email address. So send your questions our way. And now I would like to, before that, I would like to thank Victoria for always being so good at coordinating this series with Gail. And now I'd like to turn it over to Gail Lewis. Gail, welcome and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Cecilia, and thanks to everyone at the Center for Women of New York. It's my pleasure to be back here today again for Managing Change. So let's get started. Here we go. There we go. I am Professor Gail Lewis, and it's my pleasure to be back here today again with you for Managing Change in the Workplace, an interactive workshop with the Center for the Women of New York. So thank you to Cecilia and to Victoria and everyone at CWNY. So today we're talking a little bit about managing change in the workplace. We all know how jarring and stressful changes can be, whether it be changing apartments or whether it be changing jobs or changing schools. Change can be stressful, but change is also inevitable. The only thing that we can count on, well, one of the only things we can count on in life is change. So learning how to manage change, and most specifically, learning how to manage change at work, are very important. So let's talk a little bit about work. Who gets hired and who gets ahead? I always start with these questions. Who gets hired and who gets ahead? People with great credentials, people who have a certain level of education or training, and people who have experience. Who gets ahead? people who perform on the job, people who bring in revenue, or people who give great customer service and excel in performance, they get ahead. But also, who gets ahead and who keeps their jobs? People who can handle change well. So learning how to handle change is of utmost importance. And that's what we're talking about today. So when you think about the workplace, think to yourself, what do you have control over? What do you have agency over? Well, at work, although you might not have control about everything, you might not have control about who you sit next to or who you work with or who your manager is or even where your job site is, you might not have control over any of those things. However, learning how to manage change when it happens in the workplace can help you navigate unfamiliar parts of your work life and assist you in achieving your professional goals. So let's say that you are changing your job. You're going to a completely different type of job. Maybe you worked in retail and now you got a job as a bookkeeper. Completely different environment, completely different group of people that you're working with. You'd be doing completely different tasks. Those kind of changes can be stressful, and learning how to handle that stress and overall change at work is really important. So today we're going to examine change. We're going to first look at what change in the workplace is and why learning how to manage it is so important. Then second, we're going to look at tools for navigating change in the workplace. And then lastly, we're going to look at tools to become a more self-aware person and be more self-aware in your reactions to change. So let's start at the very beginning with what is change in the workplace and why is learning how to manage it so important? Think about some of the milestones in life. They all involve change, right? The birth of a new child, that's a huge change. Moving, whether from one part of Queens to the next, or maybe across country, or even to a different country. Maybe you came to America from somewhere else. All of these are huge changes. And when you have a change at work, it can be stressful as well. So what exactly do we mean when we say change in the workplace? According to Law Insider, change in the workplace refers to major organizational changes or employee policy changes that will significantly affect your job security and employment conditions of employees. So major organizational changes, maybe at your job, they're creating new jobs. Maybe they're creating a whole level of managers, or maybe they're getting rid of a whole cadre of managers. Organizational changes. Maybe they're going to restructure the way they do things. Maybe you're going to be at a different job site. So instead of working in Queens every day, maybe you're now going to have to travel to the Bronx. So even things like geography can change. Additionally, in addition to major organizational changes, there can be changes in policy, the way that you do things. So think about things like filling out forms or the protocol that you follow every day. I remember working at Macy's, we had a certain protocol that we followed every day. And it seemed like there were always changes in that protocol. So one week we would have to swipe in by the time at a certain location. The next week we'd have to go around to the other side of the building and we were only allowed to swipe in there. Constant changes in policy. So all of these changes are what we refer to when we say workplace or organizational change. And they're all things that can affect your job security, your stress level, and your employment conditions. So, why do organizational changes happen? Let's look at that next. Well, according to the Harvard Business Review, HBR, organizational changes happen when it's believed that the change will enable the business to operate at a higher level. So, organizational changes happen when people believe that they will make the company become more efficient or more productive or more innovative and always more profitable. I worked at a call center and I used to answer a lot of phone calls, and it seemed as if we had an organizational change every other day. They would find ways of saving 10 cents here or 1 cent here. And so that bottom line, that profitability, drove change. So as they realized if we did things just a little bit differently, they might save 2 cents. We did things differently. So I understand the turmoil and the stress level that can come with organizational changes. But know that if you are starting a job or you're already in your job and there's changes, that you can develop the tools that you need to really cope with those changes. So, why is learning to manage change in the workplace so important anyway? Well, as we previously already talked about, stress, but also some other things as well. Learning to deal with change in the workplace is important so that you don't get left behind. At work, people who don't change along with the protocols or with the organization sometimes get left behind and sometimes even get reprimanded for doing things the old way instead of the new way. So learning to manage and navigate change is important so that we as workers do not get left in the dust or left behind. A study from the American Psychological Association, they're called the APA, found that organizational changes, that's corporate restructuring or even new leadership, can lead to employees who are overly stressed, have less trust in their employers and their bosses, and have a greater desire to find new jobs. So learning how to manage change is going to lower your stress level at work, which is always a beautiful thing, but it's also going to help you keep trust in your bosses and your employers, and it's going to dampen any desire that you might have to find a new job just because of the change. So now that we've looked at managing change and exactly what workplace change is, let's look at some tools for navigating change in the workplace. Just like with so many other things that we spoke about here on these CWNY workshops, navigating change in a workplace is a skill that you can acquire, learn, and even master. So there are 5 great tools for navigating change in the workplace, and they include: first, helping others; second, embracing new opportunities; third, maintaining relationships; fourth, creating a plan; and fifth, communicating. So let's get started by looking at these tools for navigating change in the workplace. First, helping others. As you probably know, sometimes when you're hurting or when you have an issue, the very act of helping someone else makes you feel better about your own issue. It kind of makes you, in your mind, work through what you're going through when you extend a helping hand to someone else who needs it. So, the first tool for navigating change is to help others. Excuse me. Chances are you're not the only one at your job site who feels uncomfortable with the changes going on in your workplace. So, if you can take the focus away from your own situation and direct it towards someone else's, it's going to help you cope. So, how can you do that? Well, first, have personal conversations with either in person or on Zoom, or some other technology like Slack, but have conversations with other people who are having a challenge with navigating change. Also, you can invite a coworker or several coworkers out to lunch, maybe off-site, or perhaps even go for a brisk walk outside so that you can discuss the situation. I find that in general, when you're navigating a challenge at work, whether it be change or a challenging problem or a challenging issue, I always find that if I just literally go outside and just take a walk around the block, it just gives me a level of clarity. So if you're navigating change in the workplace and you see other people are having a challenge doing it as well, you might want to go for a leisurely walk at lunchtime with your coworkers so you can just talk a little bit about it. Also, like I said, that process of helping other people will help you to deal with the stress and adapt more quickly to change. So, helping others is really a win-win for both of you. In addition to helping others, the second tool for navigating change is to embrace new opportunities. There is a blessing to everything, or a silver lining, if you will. And there's a silver lining to change in the workplace. And it is the opportunity to add new skills to your work tool belt or your repertoire, if you will, or even to work with new team members. So that's the opportunity. So, yes, there's a lot of change, and yes, it can be stressful, but you also have to embrace the opportunity that you've been given to use your skills in a new way, or to acquire new skills, or even to work with new people. Change often translates into possibility for people who are willing to embrace it. Reorganizations at work or mergers with other companies can create new positions, new divisions, new departments, or even a chance to create a new job title. A lot of times we think of change as subtracting things from work, but a lot of times also change can mean adding things to work. So look out for the opportunities, the new positions that might be opening up, and apply. Now that we looked at embracing new opportunities, let's look at the third way to navigate change, and that's maintaining relationships. A great tool to navigate change is to maintain the relationships that you've already made at work. Make an effort to stay connected to the coworkers that you have right now that you might be moving from, or coworkers that you had previously, to expand your network. We did an entire workshop on the importance and how to network. So never leave employees or coworkers behind if you can at all help it, as long as they're not toxic. But coworkers that you worked with in other departments or in other job sites can help you in the future get another job. old bosses, it's always important to maintain a good relationship with them because they can give you a reference to your next position. So you don't want to burn those bridges, especially when you're navigating change. So maintain your relationships. Don't forget about the people you've already had a chance to work with because they could become extremely beneficial in your future. If you haven't kept in touch, maybe after COVID, you just never got in touch with someone, reach out over social media or send them a quick email and just start up the relationship again. Reach out and keep that relationship going. It might just be beneficial in the end. The fourth way or the fourth tool to navigate change at work is to create a plan. Without a plan in life, whether it be a plan on how to, what trains you're going to take to get to your job interview tomorrow, you would plan that, right? You would go on the transit app and you would see, okay, these are the trains I need to get there because I'm not familiar with that part of town. You'd make a plan, right? With anything, with your kids, you make a plan. With dinner, you make a plan, often at the last minute, but still you make a plan. We plan for so many things, especially as women. We are planners. So when you're navigating change, it's no different. You want to make a plan. So once the motive for change is understood, you need to create a plan. The plan should broadly outline what tools or personal changes you're going to need to make to address the changes that are happening at work. Think of your plan as your roadmap, your way to navigate a new and unfamiliar territory or terrain. So, for example, if now instead of working 9 to 5, you're going to be working 8 to 4, maybe you need to arrange childcare for that extra 2 hours that you're going to need to travel. Maybe you're going to need, to drop your kids off earlier. Maybe you're going to need different transportation if your job is moving from where you are now to a place maybe a little bit further away or a place that really is not accessible on the train. Maybe you need to purchase a car. Or maybe you might not need your car anymore because your new job site is really close to home. Maybe you want to sell your car and pocket the money, but you want to make that plan for transportation. Maybe you need to move. Maybe your job site for the job that you really love and that you see yourself growing in, maybe they're moving you from your position in Queens to a position that's even better in the Bronx. So maybe the commute from Queens to the Bronx every day would be too much. So maybe you need to plan a move to meet the challenges of change on the job. So you need to sit down and create a roadmap or a plan for how you in your personal life are going to meet the demands of change on the job. Having a defined strategy in place makes it easier to communicate with your boss and your team members and to monitor progress towards milestones and goals. So just like everything else that we as women do, we make a plan. This is no different. Have a roadmap. In addition to navigating change at work by creating a plan, you also want to communicate. When things are challenging at work, communication is critical. I think about a song, I think it was from maybe the 1980s or the 1990s. How do rumors get started? Started by the jealous people. Okay, I'm not a singer, I'm not a rapper, but I remember that song and it was very catchy because it said, how do rumors get started, right? When there is change in the workplace, rumors fly like lightning through the workplace. Oh, did you hear this one's getting laid off? When really it's not true. Or this one's getting promoted when really it's not true. Or maybe we're moving the work site to Florida when really it's not true. So during changes at work, you've got to maintain communication. You've got to make sure to keep communicating. Any communication gaps can instantly be filled by rumors, right? How do rumors get started? They get started when there isn't a lot of information and people just start filling in other information where there's a gap. So maybe your boss says, we're going to move the work site, but she doesn't tell you where. And so then the rumors start, right? Maybe we're moving to Nebraska. Maybe we're moving to California. Maybe we're moving to Staten Island. But you can see people fill in those blanks with rumors. So you've got to make sure that you communicate during change at work. When rumors start flying, they create even more fear and uncertainty around the idea of change. If you can effectively communicate your concerns to coworkers and your managers and your supervisors within the organization, your anxiety can be better addressed and alleviated. So if you hear a rumor, ask someone in charge, ask someone for some real information, and try to stay away from the rumor mill. I know it's very enticing to contribute to the rumor mill and also to listen to it, but communicate with people who are decision makers and who actually know the deal. So now that we've looked at the 5 tools for navigating change, let's switch gears a little bit and look at tools to help us become more self-aware. When we become more self-aware, we become people who are better at coping with change at work and also change in other aspects of our lives. So maybe we're thinking about, maybe we're out of work and we're looking for work. That's a big change. It's a big work change. So how are we navigating that? Well, through active coping. So whether you're looking for a new job or whether you're changing careers, or whether you have been out of the workforce for a while and you're getting back into the workforce, or maybe you got laid off, or maybe fired, or maybe you just want to start all over again. All of these or any of these changes can be very stressful. So becoming more self-aware and using active coping techniques are going to help us to navigate those changes, both at work and also in other aspects of our lives. So let's take a look at active coping. A tool to become more self-aware is to try active coping. I know you're probably sitting there saying, what is active coping? And I'm glad you asked that question. Basically, there are 2 ways that we cope with information, that we cope with change at work and change in our lives. They are escape coping and active coping. So the first one, escape coping. It is kind of, I guess, just like it sounds, escaping. Escape coping is a form of coping that involves changing our behavior to try to avoid thinking or feeling things that are uncomfortable. So that's when there's organizational change at work, or change at home, and we just kind of close our eyes or our ears to it, and we just try to avoid it. That's escape coping. And most of us are very guilty of it, right? No one wants to hear bad news. A lot of us can be very resistant to change. So we've got to fight those urges to be escape coping and instead use active coping techniques. Active coping techniques are going to help you face the change and they are going to lower your stress level and make you just feel better about the change. Active coping is a form of coping that allows us to take the problem head on, to tackle the problem head on. Active coping is an approach that's healthier because you're addressing the stress instead of avoiding the stress. So I'm going to stop right there. A lot of times, I'm guilty of this. I know a lot of you probably are as well. Things that are just changing and that you just don't want to deal with, we want to avoid them. But that only adds to your stress level, right? You're sitting up at night and you're just worrying and thinking about it because you're not taking any steps to cope with it, to actively cope with it. And when we aren't actively coping, when we are escape coping, what it actually does is make our stress levels go higher. It makes us not able to sleep. It makes us overeat. It makes us not want to do the things that we should be doing for our families and for ourselves. So instead of escape coping, we should try active coping. It's going to lower our stress levels. It's going to help us with the not being able to sleep. And ultimately, the most important thing to do to cope with change in the workplace is to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it's scary. Talk to your partner or your best friend or a coworker about how the changes make you worried, that you're scared, that change is inevitable, but change can be scary and stressful. And acknowledging that and talking about that to your partner or your best friend or whoever you got is going to help you lower the stress and make you better prepared to take it on. Recognizing the change and accepting change is one of the first steps toward managing it. So you've got to try active coping to cope with stress. So what exactly does that mean? 3 things. First, seek feedback. Like I said, your best friend, your partner, a coworker who you're close with, an old friend, the woman who lives upstairs who sometimes looks after your kids, whomever it is, seek some feedback. Tell them about how you're feeling with the changes at work, which are stressful. Seek that kind of feedback, and it's going to help you actively cope with change. Second, be open to learning. It's really scary, isn't it? When you are given a new program on a computer or a new app to do things, or when at your job site they say, okay, we're just going to roll out a whole new program or a whole other way of doing things, or we're going to get rid of all paper and do everything electronically. That's really scary. It might be scary for a lot of reasons. Maybe you're not good at keyboarding. Maybe your computer skills aren't that great. Maybe your app or your math skills or whatever need some sharpening. But the bottom line here is to be open to learning. I'm going to say that again. So there's lots of changes, lots of different ways that you're going to be doing things, but you want to be open to the learning experience. So open to learning that new program, or open to learning a new way of doing accounting. Whatever it is, just be open to the process of learning it. When you put up a barrier between you and the new, it's, again, very stressful, and it makes learning and it makes the change process that much more difficult. So just be open to learning. And lastly, adjust the way that you do things, adjust your behaviors for better collaboration and better communication. I know sometimes at work, you want to go to work and you maybe at your job site, you're completely solo. Maybe you sit in the back office and you do accounting, or maybe you're on the sales floor, but you're all by yourself in one particular part of the sales floor. And you really don't have to talk to people other than customers. You don't have to talk to your coworkers. You want to adjust your behavior when going through organizational change so that you are more open and accessible to talking to your coworkers, so that when your coworkers have an issue or you have an issue, you have someone to discuss that with. You have someone to help you cope. And also be open to collaboration at work as well. Collaborating with someone new on a project because maybe they've joined your work group, or maybe the new person who's just joined your organization. Be open to collaborating with people. Maybe you've just changed jobs, or you just found a new job or changed industries. Be open to collaboration whenever there is change. So today we looked at a lot of things when we looked at managing change in the workplace. So let's review. Today we talked about managing change in the workplace. First, we talked about exactly what we mean when we say change in the workplace, and also why managing it is so important. Next, we looked at specific tools for navigating that change. And then lastly, we looked at how becoming more self-aware can help us manage change, not only at work, but also in other areas of our lives as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today for Managing Change in the Workplace. Please join us in February. Wait, first of all, can you imagine it's December? Where did the last 12 months go? But because of the New Year holiday, we will not be having a seminar in January. So mark your calendars. Someone said that they marked their calendars when we first started. So be sure to mark your calendars for February 6th for our next exciting workshop right here. Also, please keep in touch. I'm Professor Gail Lewis. You can always email me if you have a question or some follow-up. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't give a shameless plug for my favorite not-for-profit organization other than CWNY, and that's Toastmasters. If you're interested in learning new public speaking skills, or maybe if you're interested in honing your leadership skills, find a Toastmasters club near you. It's a not-for-profit organization, and there's clubs in so many neighborhoods in over 120 different countries. There might be one near you. You can find out at toastmasters.org. It asks you for your zip code, and you can look up exactly where there's a club near you. And I see that we might have some questions. Sure, Pira, my email is on the slide. Oh, there you go. And someone answered that too. There we go. Are there any questions?
I'm definitely going to look you up in the Toastmaster. That's why I joined, because of the public speaking and the Toastmaster club that you're part of. Are you in New York?
Yes,
Oh,
I'm
great.
actually
Okay.
in Queens.
Me too. Great. I will send you an email.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for this class. It was really great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's kind. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have?
And if I could continue with Toastmasters for Priya,
Mhm.
once you go to the Toastmasters website, you can also search for clubs in your area by
Okay.
your zip code. But beyond that, with now Zoom meetings,
Mhm.
you can choose a day of the week that's convenient and join via Zoom.
Oh, great. Even better.
You can be a guest at many clubs and
Oh,
get that
great.
experience of change, right?
Yeah.
No, it was open
Throw
to,
yourself
I thought
into
it was
change.
like a membership type of thing. This is great.
No, first you're a guest and then you're a member.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Anyone?
Just wanted to like chime in a little bit. Gail, thank you so much for your presentation. I want to echo like the difficulty sometimes with change in the workplace, especially for many of the women that we serve that have gone through so much, like especially during COVID. And I know it feels like, you know, we're back to normal again, but so many things have changed and so many different situations, especially again for the women that we serve, such as, you know, situations of domestic violence or immigration and rent not being accessible and all this. So I just wanted to, you know, mention that because I want to make sure that we always keep in mind the challenges that some of our most vulnerable women go through. And if there are changes in the workplace for someone who's not in crisis, is already overwhelming. When you add to that crises that some of us are lucky not to be going through, it's just so much. So I just wanted to bring that up, to always remind ourselves, you know, like what our mission is, and that change is like the way we react to change is affected by so many factors, and not only just because of what we're going through, our work, or in the transition from one job to another, or in the search for a job. Just wanted to, you know, always keep that front and center for us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Does anyone have any more questions?
I can share a question. A young woman was very happy in her office that she was working at for about a year, and was told that overnight she would have to move to another section of the building. And so she did so under stress. And then when she did, she was so unhappy. She was surrounded by people who were noisy and were talking across her office and had no real work connection with her work. They were in a different department. So how would you relieve someone's stress in that situation?
Thanks for that question, Victoria. As I mentioned during the presentation, I worked at a call center when I was in college, and it was very stressful for a variety of reasons. First of all, it was a call center, so when people call for customer service, generally, you know, they're having a problem, so they're already a little bit stressed, and then, you know, the stress level usually just goes from there. So the job itself was stressful, but then we just had almost daily changes in the way that we did things, and we moved physically. You know, the job site moved quite a few times over the years that I worked there. So it was always this kind of change. So I completely so when you speak of that, I can absolutely understand. And it's funny, I experienced something very similar. I moved departments, but I was only one of two people in that work group. So they just stuck the two of us on the end of a Spanish speaking part of the call center. So everyone was doing their calls in Spanish and speaking in Spanish. And then it was just me and the other person kind of tucked in there. And I felt the same way. Like people were talking over me because they just had different work groups, so a different scope of work and a different language. So I often felt excluded and just like not a member of any real team. And so one thing that I did was I put a big I don't want to say jar, like a big dish of candy on my desk. So which I know I kind of went back and forth about doing it, but I figured that way when people were going by, they would stop and they would say hello, and that was a way of just kind of opening the door a little bit, because everyone in a call center, everyone's just so busy, they don't have time, you know, to just you know, be friendly except for at lunchtime. So that really opened up a lot of things for me. People would just kind of say, oh, you know, the candy lady, and they just go over, hey, how are you? Why don't you come over? We're having cake for our birthday. You know, so that just opened up people, just being colleagues, not even just being best friends or anything, but just being colleagues. So if there's something like that that you can do to make your workplace, to make other people kind of more welcoming and make yourself seem a little bit more welcoming, I would suggest to do it. So whether it be candy or something else, candy was real easy for me because candy's inexpensive. And so I could just fill up the dish and not have to worry, you know, and if somebody took too many, who cares? It's candy. I can go to the dollar store and get another bag. So I would suggest something like that. It just kind of opens you up to the other people.
That's
Thank you
great
for
advice.
that. Liz. Yeah, I love that. And I saw that immediately, like as soon as you said candy, Victoria, Raquel, and I smiled. Like, like I felt myself like happy when you said that. So on top of like addressing one's needs, like we also should pay attention to everyone's, right? Like it is so good. Like we're not the only people that could be going through change. And I also like what Victoria said before, made me think of something that I saw the other day in one of those like social media videos. It was a comparison between a man washing dishes and what he was thinking about. It was just one thing, and it was pretty simple. Like it was like a music list or something along those lines. And then the woman was like, the kids don't have fall clothes. I need to make an appointment for, you know, my youngest doctors, and then groceries and the next meal and all these things that we juggle. So a little piece of candy or some act of kindness is always like, you know, nice for any change that people are going through. And sometimes we don't know that they're going through any change or any crisis. So it's always good to have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. And to piggyback on that, one time I changed shift because that was another weird thing about that job. So sometimes you're working days, sometimes you're working afternoons, sometimes you're working nights. It was a hot mess. But I changed shifts. So I was working very early in the morning. So I stopped by Dunkin' Donuts and they had a promotion for 2 donuts for the price of 1. So I said, pack them separately or else I will eat them both for breakfast. So that way I could have 2 donuts in 2 different bags. So I would have one for lunch because I'm greedy. I would just eat both for breakfast. So I got 2 donuts for the price of 1, wrapped in separate bags. And when I went to work, there was someone sitting in the cubicle right behind me who I just never had met because it was a new shift and new people. And I was just like, oh, hey, here's a donut. I just gave him the donut. It was already packed in a different bag. And she started to cry. And I was like, oh no, you know, I just didn't know what to do or what was happening. I was like 19 and I just didn't know what was going on. And she later on, she told me no one had done anything nice for her in such a long time. And that free donut, like something I didn't even pay for, just meant so much to her. Like someone was really kind of looking out for her. So what you say, Cecilia, is absolutely true. You just don't know what people are going through. So just that little act of kindness might really make a difference.
Yeah. Thank
There
you
was
so much, Gail.
There were so many takeaways today, Gail, but one brings me back to the teaching field. It is a workplace, and it is sometimes not a very well supported workplace in some of these webinars and workshops. And that takeaway that we could communicate with someone from a previous department, a previous career, or previous job, it really does hold true. The teachers who coped the best either confided in their classmates in their grad classes, because they're not only teachers, they're students, confided in someone in another department or a family member, and they were the ones who coped the best. The ones who kept it all inside were not doing so well, and we lost them. Sometimes they left the profession, even though they were so skilled. So do use those coping mechanisms that Gail is recommending. They do work.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you, Victoria, for putting this together. And Gail, thank you so much again for presenting. We always appreciate your insights and your support. Change is like an important topic. And I just want to leave with a kindness thought. The holidays are coming up. So whether it is a coworker or a mentor or a mentee that you have, just like, it feels good for that person and for yourself to treat people well, and to just even a word like appreciation helps, especially at this time of the year. Thank you so much. And again, there's no workshop in January, so we'll see you all in this series in February. And stay tuned for the topic. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a great day and happy holidays.
Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays.